When we're thinking about meaning, if I asked you what you saw there, what would you say in that picture? Dog. Any specific? Yeah, okay. That was your ink blot test for the night. See where the dog is for those of you that... I'll go back just, you know. Oh, yeah. There's all kinds of things that you can see in that. The point about that when we think about meaning is that in order to make meaning, we have to have something in our brain to link to. So to find a dog in that pattern, you had to have seen a dog, preferably a Dalmatian dog, for your brain to kind of conjure up the, oh yeah, that's a dog picture. And to do that strongly. So it's kind of a symbolic way of thinking about meaning. Again, with our kids, if we're talking about meaning, we want them to be able to connect from their lives with whatever it is we're talking to them about as much as possible, particularly if we want them to be paying attention. Emotion is the other piece, and if we can sort of hook into where our kids are at and what they're passionate about. You know, again, I think of St. Michael's and I think of the huge opportunities for service, and I see kids passionate about how they can make a difference. That's really, really meaningful, and that's wiring in some amazingly deep things for our kids. And so we want to engage them where they're passionate. We also want to be careful about emotions that are negative. Again, we go back to stress and that sort of thing, right? If we're going to have a talk with our kids as a parent, we want to be able to get through to them and not create such a stressful thing that they're not even in a place to be taught or to learn because they've shut down the brain. So, there's no such thing as not paying attention. Our brain is always paying attention to something, so I just want you to be clear about that. So when you feel like you're not paying attention, it's actually that something else is coming in there. Choice and novelty are good. And if our students can sort of get passionate or find meaning, then that's a way that we can help them learn. So those are kind of three pieces that I wanted to look at. And then for me, it's a kind of a so what. So you've come as parents and as teachers tonight to think about your kids and your students. So what does this all mean? And I think one of the places where this really all comes together nicely is in the research by Carol Dweck called Mindset. She has a book out, and I had sort of said if there was one book, I gave you a resource list at the back of your handouts, but if there's one that I would really recommend, they're all great, but if you want just a quick, easy, Carol Dweck has done 30 years of research looking at mindset and brain research and how things fit together. And she's discovered some fascinating things that are applicable to us as parents, as teachers, as coaches, in terms of what sort of helps kids. Just as a quick overview for you, and then we're going to just watch a brief sort of 3 or 4 minute clip. One of the experiments that she did that fascinated me is she had a group of grade 7 kids that struggled with math. And she split them into 2 groups, and the control group got study skills. And the other group got study skills plus lessons about neurology, how their brains worked. Just kind of like what we talked about tonight in terms of building those pathways and so on. And so they did this for a period of time, and then they brought the students back together and continued on in the math. And what she discovered was the students that had learned about their brains, the students that had figured out that, you know, things are possible. It can happen. It can be really great. Those were the kids that did better in math. The students that had simply had the study skills, they did okay, but it wasn't nearly the difference. And so she speaks about the power of understanding how our brain works and then how that feeds into our mindset. So there's a parenting expert that's interviewing a person, someone who's quite well versed in Carol Dweck, and we're just gonna watch this clip for about 4 minutes.
The Greater Good Science Center presents Half Full, Social Science for Raising Happy Kids, a discussion series between Dr. Christine Carter and Kelly Corrigan.
So sometimes I feel like I'm sort of overwhelmed with all these different things that I'm trying with my kids, and I just want to focus on one thing. I want like a mantra. I want something super high impact that's going to change the way I operate every day.
Okay. I have just reviewed all of Carol Dweck's research on mindsets and the psychology of success, and that's what we got to focus on this year, mindsets.
Mindsets. So, I'm writing it down.
Okay. All right, mindset. So there are 2 basic types of mindset. There's the fixed mindset, which is the belief that Kids are born with whatever talents they're going to have. They have certain proclivities. They're gifted.
They're natural.
Their traits are set in stone, basically. And the growth mindset is the belief that success really comes from effort and practice and hard work.
So this is almost like nature versus nurture, right?
Yes, exactly. So the fixed mindset is the really strong belief in nature. And the growth mindset places much more emphasis on effort and hard work to get where you want to go and to be successful.
I think I've been talking fixed mindset. I mean, I think Edward is sort of naturally inclined towards music, and I think Claire's really language oriented, whereas George is sort of numbers oriented. I mean, these are all, I'm way off on the wrong end.
You can see it's very natural. This is what our culture preaches, definitely, is this fixed mindset. But here's the problem with the fixed mindset. When you label Georgia as a smart girl or something,
which I've only told her about 1,000 times.
Yeah, I know. I say to my kids, "You're brilliant. You're a genius." You know, I mean, I think it's very natural to do this. But here's the problem: you give them that label, and it kind of puffs them up a little bit, and they like it, and then they don't want to lose it. So she's going to go out in the world, starting to evaluate situations and what she does in terms of whether or not she's going to look smart, whether or not she's going to win or lose. It's going to start to become a little bit of an insecurity for her. She's going to always be wanting
she's got to prove it.
Right. So what happens when something doesn't come naturally to them? They have to put a little effort out for it. Does that mean they're dumb? Does that mean they're not innately talented?
Right.
So then they start to look at the world in terms of situations. Am I going to look smart in that situation?
Right. It's why the kids don't take hard classes.
And actually, there's some great research behind that that shows that really fixed mindset college students will avoid taking the classes that they need to get better. It's a very uncomfortable feeling to feel like you have to always be proving yourself and protecting that special label that's been given to you.
It also just pulls all the control away, because if you think that the reason why you did well on the test is because you're so smart,
right,
and then you do poorly on a test,
right,
then what does that mean? That you're no longer smart? Right. Whereas if you're giving all the credit to effort and studying and time on task and getting extra help from the teacher,
right,
then you know how to create the outcome that you're driving for.
That's exactly right. The top thing really is effort. So Tiger Woods may have been born a good golfer. We don't really know that. What we do know is he started playing when he was 3, and he's practiced every day since. That effort and that hard work is now paying off in success. Now,
so our messages have to be changed across the board. It's not only what we're saying directly to our kids, but it's what we're saying about other people when our kids are in earshot.
The other really great reason why is because kids who have growth mindsets are going to enjoy themselves more. They're going to like their activities. They're going to love learning more. They're going to learn to embrace challenges. Growth mindsets are a real key to having a happy childhood.
So fixed mindset is a recipe for sort of joyless achievement, whereas growth mindset
is a great recipe for a happy childhood.
Okay, so my mantra, growth mindset.
Join us next time on Half Full, Science for Raising Happy Kids, when we talk more about the importance of emphasizing effort rather than results.
I've given you the website for that, and there are a number of really neat, just very short clips that go along with that, if you're interested in further information. You know, when people are into a certain theory, it becomes all or nothing, doesn't it? And I want to say that I think that there are things that kids have as innate talents. But I think the message here is really, really important. I think of my daughter. I was reading this about 3 or 4 years ago. My daughter was practicing piano and growing increasingly frustrated. I can't do this, I can't play. And I think I had been saying to her, you're very musical. You're a great piano player. And she hit up against a piece that she struggled with. And all of a sudden she couldn't play piano. And I was reading this kind of at the same time, and I went, oh, what if I shifted my message? So I started to talk about, wow, yesterday you couldn't even get those 2 bars, but you practiced, and I can hear a difference today in how they sound. That's great effort. And I almost noticed overnight a transformation in her willingness to kind of engage and try and work at things. So for me, that was kind of a powerful application of this growth and fixed mindset. So I have these pictures in your package, And it's really just a breakdown of what we've talked about. If we call a child gifted, or whatever we call them. Someone else said to me this morning, we were talking about this, well, someone called my child dyslexic. So whatever the label is, and that's how we see it, and that's fixed, then then kids learn how to be that, and they try to avoid anything that might indicate that they're not that. And so we end up with kids walking around with a label of gifted, or a natural athlete, or whatever it is, who are maybe not going to take the challenges that they want to take. They may avoid those challenges and not push on through and not really see the impact between, or the connection between their effort and what they're getting from it. They may not even think that they need feedback, right? Because they're a natural at what they do. And they may feel threatened if there's other kids in the class that get similar labels, or on the team. You know, somehow may stand in jeopardy of theirs. And so the theory would say that as a result, they may plateau early and not reach their full potential. I think what it can do is it can just really put a lot of challenge in for kids in terms of their perception of who they are and what they can do. We want to, as we talked earlier about that whole brain development thing, we want to keep that wide open. And we want kids to understand that over time, it's over time and with hard work that you develop these pathways. So that's a little more like a growth mindset. Kids in growth mindset, and Carol Dweck's done studies with kids even in kindergarten, where she can, you know, they do a puzzle and then they give the kids a choice of you can go to a table that has a very similar level puzzle or a harder puzzle, and they'll watch. And even in kindergarten, kids go, well, I don't want to do one that's harder, I just want to be able to whip it off over here, right? And the other ones that are saying, why would I do that again? I've already mastered that, I want to try this. And so we're trying to create that kind of growth mindset for our kids that say, yeah, this is a bit tricky, but I'm going to push through. So embrace those challenges and kind of persistence, effort, and the power of that. The idea that feedback, criticism can be a tricky word, but I like feedback, you know, in terms of what's going well and what you might need some help with. And finding some lessons in the success of others instead of being intimidated by that. So again, know that these are kind of two polar ways of looking at it, and like anything, there's likely a continuum in there. But I think it's interesting to kind of think about. So just as we're sort of wrapping up tonight, we've got a couple more minutes here, I want you to think about, and with a partner, a couple of messages that you could give to your children that would reflect a fixed mindset. So, oh, you're so smart, you got an A, that's you're so brilliant, right? That might be a fixed mindset. Or two messages you could give to your children or your students that would reflect a growth mindset. That homework was long and involved. I admire the way you stayed with it, or you concentrated. Are you seeing the difference in terms of how that is? So again, this is about, I'm trying to honor brain research, not only in what we talk about, but how we are together. And one of the really key pieces we've already talked about tonight is the importance of summarizing. And that can come out in parenting as well, right? In terms of, you have a conversation. Sometimes parents go on like for 20 minutes about something. It might be good to stop, it might be good not to go on for 20 minutes. But if you choose to do that, it might be good to stop and summarize periodically. So summarizing is a powerful thing for our brains. And so before we scoot out the door and back into the mayhem that is our lives, I'd like it if you could just take a minute. So the way that this share one, get one works is that at the top three boxes, there's room for you to write a word, a phrase, a little picture, something to remind you of something that stood out for you tonight in terms of your own learning. Okay, so you might write choice, you might write fixed and growth, I don't know, you might draw a little picture because that's your learning stuff. Stay tuned because on November 23rd, we're going to start looking at the adolescent brain, and that's where some fun things start to happen. You may know that as you house your adolescents. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the gender stuff and the impact of drugs and alcohol on the brain, but just the development of the adolescent brain and what sort of happens. And from a brain research perspective, adolescence starts around age 9 or 10. So really it's quite a large gamut that we're thinking about. So thank you very much. It's been a great evening.